Hello, the purpose of this screencast is twofold. First, I'm going to read aloud an article called The Powhatan. Second, you are going to use this as a source, so you're going to take notes from this source. In order to do that, while we read, you need to tell the difference between important details, which answer who, what, where, when, and interesting details, meaning it might be interesting, but it's not necessarily a main idea. It doesn't answer the who, what, where, and when. It's not a big idea. Also, we're going to practice not looking at the source and taking recoded or paraphrased notes. That means writing down the information in your own words, not using any of the words from the original source, or at least any of the original phrasing, and changing big words or words you're not familiar with into sixth grade words, so things you understand. Also, using shorthand. So, let's begin. First, we preview. This is a picture of where the Powhatan lived. This is the Potomac River, which is where Washington, D.C. is today. This is the James River, which is in southern Virginia, And so this is all of Virginia. These are the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. This is the Chesapeake Bay. This is where the Powhatan lived. They lived in these houses called Yeehakens of different sizes and for different purposes. And this is what historians believe a Yeehaken, or a village that the Powhatan lived in would look like. And this is based off of paintings from early Europeans that traveled to that region of the world. This is the inside of a Yeehaken. Here are their famous dugout canoes, which they would burn the top of the log and then remove the ash with seashells from the Chesapeake Bay, and eventually over time the canoe would hollow out. And then some of that same painter that traveled out to this region of the world also painted the pictures of what the Powhatan looked like. And from all accounts, they were known for their detailed tattoos. So, as I read this first paragraph, I want you to think about what is the important information? What names are mentioned in there? Who? What is it about? In other words, what big ideas might be in there? Why or when? Are there any dates in here? And then where? Are there any locations in here? So let's begin. The Powhatan. The Powhatan were a group of Native American tribes that lived in the area we now call Virginia. More specifically, the Powhatan lived from the James River in the south to the Potomac River in the north, and from the foothills in the west down to the Chesapeake Bay in the east. Before Europeans began exploring in the area, it is estimated that 25,000 people lived in this area. What I want you to do now is we're going to recall those big ideas, the who, what, where, when ideas from this single paragraph. And without looking back at this, we're going to just recall what we remember, and that's what we're going to take notes on. So, pause now. All right, let's move on to the next paragraph. When the English landed in 1607, which is an important date, on the river they name the James River, the Powhatan population has dropped down to 15,000 because of diseases from European explorers. The Powhatan are a confederation of more than 30 tribes united under one leader, the Wahunsoonakok. He gained control of these different tribes through marriage alliances or through the threat of force. So throughout this region are several, I think close to 40 to 60 tribes, and they all unite underneath this single leader, which is called Chief Powhatan. Okay, same thing. What are the big ideas in this? You're going to think about that without even looking back in here. Pause now. Next paragraph. The Powhatan lived in towns that were near rivers, but located on higher ground. The rivers were used for transportation, food, and bathing. Some towns near the edge of the Powhatan territory were surrounded by a palisade to protect the Powhatan from their enemies. This is a palisade right here. The trees surrounding the village. Powhatan villages could range in size from 2 homes with 6 to 20 people living in each dwelling, all the way up to 100 homes. These Yeehakans were made from a frame of saplings, which is a small tree, and covered with woven mats, which were really intricate weavings. Each home had a hole in the middle of the ceiling to allow smoke out, and beds were constructed along the walls of the dwelling. So we see the palisade here. We see what a European painter at the time envisioned Yeehakans to look like. Then we see the inside of one. Beds are on the side. Things were hanging from the saplings for storage, and also beds were sometimes even up lofted. And then there was a hole up here in the middle for smoke to come out from a fire. Okay, who, what, where, when? What important details are in this? Pause now, recall, and use your own words. Moving on. Yeehakans were built and maybe owned by women. Connection, very similar to the Dakota. In addition to building the homes, women also prepared the food, collected firewood, raised children, and farmed, make clothing, and made tools for like baskets, mats, pots, rope, spoons, and platters. Okay, pause now to recall what women did. All right, the Powhatan men were responsible for protecting a village from attack and for hunting animals for the village. Men also made the dugout canoes built by the Powhatan for transportation and fishing. Men also cleared land for garden plots, built fishing wires. Men often had the right side of their head shaved to avoid getting their hair caught in the bowstring of their hunting weapons of choice, bow and arrow. On the left side, men let their hair grow and ornamented their hair with trophies from previous wars or hunting expeditions of note. So, right now think of the who, what, where, when from that paragraph. Pause now and take notes. Powhatan children started training with their parents as soon as they were able. Boys began to train more seriously for adulthood in the 10-15-year-old range, and girls were considered women once they reached puberty and changed their dress accordingly. So probably in their early teenage years. Okay, what is important about Powhatan children? What, who, what, where, when details are in here? Pause now, take notes in your own words. In 1607, when the English first created the settlement of Jamestown, the Powhatan were helpful. As time went on, the Powhatan got tired of the English constantly demanding food and sometimes stealing food, and the relationship between the two groups went downhill. It eventually did lead to war. So now, pause, and using your own words, write down the important details from this paragraph. Okay, this concludes the reading.